Hey, I'm Al Timberlane, and we're on KWMV 88.5 FM, Mountain View, folk music capital of the world. And today we have some guests. We have Nathan Dodds and Brennan Wiede. That's right, he's a Wiede. And they bring their instruments. And Nathan, I'm going to get started with you. So, can you do a little bit of introduction on and just explain what you're going to be doing today? I mean, do you have a few songs picked out?
We have a few tunes picked out. Some of them are tunes my friend Sam Younger played, and then some of them are just other old-time tunes.
Okay. You want to talk about the tune? Can you do one right now and then maybe talk about it a little bit? So, Brandon, which guitar is this?
This is a Fender that I've had. Actually, this was the first guitar I ever had, and we jokingly call it the fence post.
No, that's great, because a Fender's just plain old reliable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's aged a little while, and it's got some nice sound, right?
It has aged a while.
It has aged a while.
The nice sound part, we'll just let the listeners decide.
Yeah, we'll let the listeners decide. And something about the fiddle? Is this the one that...
There's quite a story on that, Phil. Nathan,
do you want to do the story now? You want to play a song first, then we'll come back to the story? Let's do that. Okay. What will you be playing? And just announce the song. And here's Nathan Dodds and Brennan Wiede.
Okay, we're going to play one of Sam's tunes called Green Valley Waltz.
Hey, yeah, we're going to come back to talking about Sam a little bit, too.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to sit down while you do that. Go ahead. All right, thank you so much for playing that. Hey, you mentioned Samuel Younger, and this is one of the tunes that he bring to the folk center, I guess. And can you tell me a little bit about it and maybe some of its background?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it. It's a very traditional tune that he played for a long, long time. And, good dance, good waltz tune, good waltz tune.
Yeah, I could feel that waltz. Did Samuel Younger introduce you to this song, or just from his performances you're like, oh, I love that song?
It's I've heard it before, but he has a very unique way of playing it. Of course, it's a very popular traditional tune. I
have a video on TimberlaneMusic.com, and it's Samuel Younger in 2014. I think there was a celebration here.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and he's on there. And he was playing more of a dance fiddle tune. I don't remember the name of the tune right now, but do you have any of those type of tunes ready to go?
One of Sam's tunes that'd be a good dance tune is Tennessee Wagner.
Do you have that one down? You want to do it?
Yeah.
All right, Tennessee Wagners, Samuel Younger. So, quick question. How did Samuel Younger impact your music? Can you tell us any background there? I'll let you answer that one first.
Well, I probably first heard his music when I was about 15 years old. There was a couple recordings of him on, well, it was the 63 Folk Festival. And so that's where I first knew about him. And then I got to meet him a couple of years later. But I loved his style, so it was really influential.
I heard that he's a true historian, at least for Mountain View, and actually heard that from you. So can you tell me one of his stories that pops into your head right now? Do you have any of his stories in mind? Just a story. Doesn't have to
Well,
even be about fiddle, really.
I mean, he had so many stories about everything. I think, he always had a couple of World War II stories. He was really proud of, he played for a dance in Hawaii that was, if I remember right, about 40 squares, which is huge. He would have been probably 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
And they had, I'm sure, people from all over the country. He said to tell everybody they better stick with it because he wasn't going to stop if they couldn't keep up.
Wow. So he was in World War II?
He was in World War II. I think he was 18, somewhere around the middle of the war. So he served like the last couple of years of the war, I believe.
He took his fiddle.
Actually, I think he had a fiddle, like a USO fiddle or something. I'm not sure, but
Okay,
it was not
that makes
his.
sense. So he met some of the USO people.
He said it had a pitch pipe in it, like you could blow on the end of it to tune the fiddle with it.
Wow. So have you seen one of those ever
I haven't
in
seen
your
one.
life? You're so old, so I figured maybe he's not really that old. So Samuel was 18, 19 years old in World War II.
Yeah.
Do you remember the year? Did he say 42, 43?
Well, I know he was in the Battle of Okinawa, which I think was maybe even as late as 1945.
Wow.
I don't remember for sure, so wouldn't quote me on that. But
There was so much going on back then in music itself. There was so much going on at RCA Records, and they had a whole bunch of stuff out back in those days, and a lot of radio shows going on too. So did he happen to say they did some broadcasting from there?
I don't think so, but one story that I wouldn't want to skip is that he met, in the service, he met a fiddle player who maybe isn't, it would probably be pretty well known today, but was definitely one of the biggest fiddle players in the music business back then. His name was Tommy Jackson. They were both, I believe, in the Army, and they were on Hawaii, and he was playing fiddle, and he said this guy walked up with fiddle under his arm, and he said, asked just as polite as could be if he could sit in and play, and it was Tommy Jackson. And he said, you play good, you should come to Nashville after the war ends, and I'll get you some jobs.
Tommy Jackson came up and talked to him. So I'm going to look for one of the archive songs of Tommy Jackson. I'll play it in this interview so people can kind of see why he was in Nashville and the types of stuff that he recorded, and that Samuel got to hang out with him a little bit. Who knows? It was World War II, so in Hawaii.
Yeah, he was in Hawaii at the end of the war before he came home.
Before he came home, okay.
Everybody's waiting to get home.
Yeah, that's when you came home, there were full bands waiting for you, and really respected their vets back then. So did Samuel have anything to do with you getting this fiddle, or is that, do you have any other stories you want to say that you want to make sure you mention for him?
This isn't my original fiddle, but I just picked this fiddle up. I guess it was this week still.
Yeah, Rebecca said to give you a hard time, so giving you a hard time. Go ahead.
So you kept your end of the deal. But anyway, I actually went up and visited with L.V. Dooms, and he's a kind of legendary guitar player up there. He's 93, and he backed Bob Holt up for years. Like, I don't know how long, but like he was one of his main backup players for years, and he kind of helped me pick this one out. And,
Was he involved in the folk center too?
he played
during
here a
the
bunch of
Jimmy
times. He's
Driftwood
from
days?
Ava, Missouri, but he's also fiddle repairman. He did that for about 30 years. He's got a bunch of fiddles. So.
Cool. I want to go over to Brennan for a second. So, I know that your history goes back to folk center days. So, what was it like as a child of Wiede, Mom and Dad? What was that like, and how hard did you guys prepare for your early shows?
We prepared as hard as we could, given the time constraints that we had to work with.
Do you remember when they first said, "Hey, we're going to do music," because you're the oldest, right?
Oh yes, I remember. And
Did they sit you down or anything, or it's like, "All right, we're going to do this"?
Oh no, we had designated practice times to be sure. We had designated practice times. We had a lot of things that were going on, constraints on our time back then. I would say shortly after we put out our Slice of Life CD, we started building our house.
Good
and that
CD,
was a
by the way.
6-year. Yes,
Yeah.
it was a good CD, very good CD. We started building our house, and that was a 6-year project. So in and around in all of our music we're doing, we had that.
I'll tell you a secret. We're one of the neighbors, and just kind of watching that house go up. It's like, wow. I mean, Bill and Millie built their house, and it takes a while, doesn't it?
It does. It takes a long time. And Nathan, he's also a very skilled tradesman, and he was involved for at least a couple, 3 years of that project.
And is that how you guys met?
Oh, no. No, we go back way farther
To
than
the
that.
before that, when you were
Way before
kids.
that, yeah.
Ah, okay. So one story about when you were kids, you and Nathan. Tell a great story here.
Oh.
Got any? Maybe backstage stuff or something. I don't know.
Well, I'd say probably the first time we'd met was in historic Leslie, which is, of course, a beautiful town. And Michael and Alice McBee used to have a beautiful 2-story house. And Nathan and his brothers had done a lot of the grounds work around the premises, incredible rock work, and worked with Alice McBee's gardens. She was a very avid gardener, and they had done just an incredible job. And she would have garden swap every spring. I guess it was late March. And it was a wonderful thing because a lot of the community gardeners would get together. And if they had extra plants that they'd started out in their greenhouses or grow lights that they couldn't plant, it was a chance for them to pass things around instead of wasting things. So a lot of people really enjoyed those. And that's where we met, I think, which would have been 11
So
12 years.
you're what do they call those? Leslie kids,
Well,
kind
yes,
of.
more or less.
So Leslie, Arkansas, that's a great little historic town.
Very
and
historic
it's,
town.
one of the places where the wood industry was huge. There was a mill and a barrel factory, and I don't know what else was going on there, but there's so much stuff going on there. And there were 2 railroad lines that came through there. 2. Now there's 0. So I was thinking, when you guys make it big, will rent us? No, oh, sorry, I live in today, don't I? Buy an old steam engine, and you and your men, because they're gonna lay the track, and to Little Rock. And that goes back to the 20s, right? There was one of the lines that went all the way into Little Rock, because they'd take those barrels, take them down there, and they'd fill them with all sorts of stuff.
It was, early 1900s, I think, when they put the first railroad through.
And Nathan, do you want to say a little bit about actually your work with preservation and perpetuation of the historic M&NA Railroad there? You've done some work with the Railroad
let's
Museum
hear
there
those
in
stories.
St. Joe, and some of your friends there.
Can you get close to the
I
mic?
haven't-
Closer to the mic.
I haven't done any work with them, but I know them. They're doing a great job on restoring the depot.
And is that the one in Leslie?
It's in St. Joe
St. Joe.
on the left if you're coming from Leslie going towards Harrison.
Well, Timberlane has a film that we're working on, and I don't want to give it all away, but it has to do with the railroad, has to do with a major strike, and it has to do with the Barnum and Bailey Circus. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. But I'm hoping that you guys will be on the team and help set up, develop the script. We're going to be dealing with historian there in Leslie and some of the other area historians. And that's totally different than what I'm doing now. This is Folk Music Rewind. So back to Folk Music Rewind. And you actually, let's go back to Leslie. Were you born and raised in Leslie?
I kind of claim that I'm from Mountain View, but I actually kind of live in the middle of nowhere. I kind of grew up in the middle of nowhere.
Something to do near Timbo or
Angora Mountain.
say that again?
Angora Mountain.
Angora Mountain. How did it get its name?
I don't know.
Good thing to research. Now, quickly, I know you know a lot of fiddle players, and some of them, you're going back, you're having conversations with them, just like you did with Samuel. How is that going? And who have you met, and who have you talked to, and are these people that you knew back in the day? And say, I need to reconnect.
Well, most of the fiddle players that I'm trying to get in contact with, I actually known probably 12 years ago, but kind of fell out of contact with them. I didn't know Violet Hensley, and I went over to her place, and I hope to go and play with her some more. But there's several others that I've known them quite a while back. I just kind of lost contact.
So are you doing this for yourself, or are you doing this for a book, or what's the idea?
Well, potentially a little both, I guess. I mean, I think that, the things they went through and the stories they've got, would be valuable to a lot of people, so it'd be nice to pass them on. But a lot of it is, too, that well, first of all, they're just really great people. They're fun to learn from, so I enjoy that aspect of it, too.
And can you tell me, have you gotten any new stories that you were like, oh, never knew that before, about Mountain View or about that particular time period after talking to some of these people?
I don't have anything super new. I mean, I have lots of good stories.
How about one, and then we'll go to another song?
Well,
One that stands out in your mind.
I have a lot of stories that Sam told me about Mountain View back in the day. He grew up, closer to St. James, but I don't know, he had so many good ones. He told me stories about Buster's Pool Hall back in the day, and
Was he a pool shark?
yeah, he hung out there a lot. And
Don't
I'm
mess
assuming,
with Samuel, right? Sam, whatever they called him in the pool hall.
one of the funny ones was that there was like a bench in there, and the owner had like rigged up a wire that went, I want to say from the phones, those old phones, you can crank them,
Mhm.
and like it would juice them up or whatever. And he rigged it up, he put some thumbtacks on the seat, and like girls and guys would sit on the seat, and then he'd give them a shock, and he had some good stories like that.
Wow, and we can't do that with our phones today. Everyone has one in their pocket. So those are funny. That's really funny. Visually, it's funny. Well, let's go on to another song. While I go over and check this camera, this other one's rolling, so we're fine. What would you like to play next?
We'll do a tune called Smoky Mountain Cakewalk.
It's a cakewalk. that was Smoky Mountain Cakewalk.
Smoky Mountain Cakewalk.
Smoky Mountain Cakewalk. So have you ever done a cakewalk, like in Leslie? Because they have that set up on, I swear, I'm like, isn't that not a cakewalk thing? But they have in the street, it's still there. You can do it any time, really, day or night, I guess.
I haven't done it. Maybe I need to do that.
Yeah, you should do a cakewalk.
Well, it's
You
not to be
might-
confused with the Searcy County Bake Sale.
Yeah, definitely different, because if you win the cakewalk, you usually walk away with cake, sometimes pie. So, you ever had those chocolate pies? They're kind of famous there. They're
Chocolate rolls.
all right, see, chocolate rolls. So you like those?
I
Or
do.
no? Yes, you do. Which one do you like, the chocolate or the strawberry or cherry? They have so many.
Well, see, Ally, I actually try to stay clear from those because currently right now I'm on a diet and I'm trying to lose weight.
Well, that's good, because you can't really tell. The cameras make you 10 pounds lighter. Talking about that, so I heard that you were given a Gibson guitar. You met Gibson. Can you tell that story?
Oh, yes. Yes, shortly before we did this, I got to talk
I think
and,
it's okay. Go ahead.
and have a session with a marketing agent from Gibson, and he offered me a multi-million-dollar guitar, and I gladly took him up on it. First thing I did, of course, was put it in hock, and I got this, and had a little cash left over for some lunch.
Yeah, now you've got a nice car. And a few
Well,
other things.
I have that too.
So, what do you drive?
Well, in my line of work, I have to drive something that gets me out of town very quickly.
You heard it from here. Don't know what he's talking about. I heard Leslie Mountain is famous for moonshine. All right, so let's move on. And thank you, Brennan. Also, you are a car buff, right? I mean,
Yes, sir.
you and Randy, your dad. I
Yes.
call him Randy because he's my buddy. So, how many cars do you guys have? You have quite a few.
Well, actually, to back that up a little bit, that's another thing that Nathan and I would do. Years ago, we were working out at a salvage yard. We had several old cars come through that needed restorations, so we got to work on those together. So we all kind of, we had that in common. And Dad's got too many cars to count. He's currently got a couple of them that he takes to shows and stuff. He's got a 71 Continental and a 70 Mustang. And I've got, I guess I've got 9 total, I guess now, and 7 of them are on the road. I've got to.
So where's your favorite place to drive? And if you were going to just pick one of those cars besides the one you drive every day,
Right.
where would you go?
Well, Arkansas is a beautiful state, Al. There's a lot of great scenery, a lot of great countryside to drive through. The destination's half the ride. The community of Gilbert's always a great destination. Friendly people, and Buffalo River National Park Service down there. They've done a great job.
Have you ever been down right on the river with one of those?
Gotten pretty close to it, but
You can get pretty close. You can drive right out there, but
yes,
you
you
also got to
can.
be able to drive out.
Yes, well, we've seen some guys do that. And Nathan, he's got that 1970 Chevelle of his, and you like going up around the dog patch area of the country up there, that old park, and exploring some of that, don't you?
Yeah, is there a huge, amphitheater at Dog Patch? Have you been on the property?
I don't know if they're, yeah, okay, well, up on top of the hill, there's the old amphitheater still there. Now, down in the park, it's just a bunch of different buildings, different attractions you can go around to. But up on the hill was the resort. I think it may have had places to stay and stuff like that.
Well, it got bought up not too long ago. He's an outfitter, right? Pretty big.
I think it's the same guy that is affiliated with Bass Pro.
Bass Pro, yeah. And I don't know where they're going with it, but I know before, while it was up on sale, somebody snuck in there. Have you ever been there? Probably too young, right? Or were you there when you were a
I
kid?
haven't been there while it was open.
When it was open, and there's these anybody that remembers Dog Patch, there's these huge water slides. And I guess the water slides were still, this is terrible, and they're still up. And they were in there and they were like photobombing, they were taking shots of Dog Patch USA and posting it while they went in there, and they thought the brothers and like, hey, I'm just gonna ride the slide down. Why not? Well, that was a mistake, because the one guy went down to the bottom of the hill and no brother. Well, when you look up at these, they are arced, right? When you look up, they look like a complete, full slide. No. He broke an arm, a leg, and a rib flying off that thing. So not a good idea to go to an old amusement park and try their slides out. Bad idea without first checking with the
I don't
owner.
recommend crossing the bridge either.
Yeah. Which bridge?
Either of them, if I remember right.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You might end up down somewhere you don't want to be.
Now they had some good music out there.
Yeah,
you got
they
to see
did.
a pretty big name group out there a few years back, didn't you, Nathan?
Yeah, Black Oak, Arkansas played. It was the main attraction.
Was that a festival?
Yeah, they had a music festival there a few years back, and Black Oak, Arkansas played, and then some lesser-known bands like, let's see, well, one of my friends has a band. He kind of plays classic rock, and then there's another one. I can't recall the name at the moment. It's pretty good, kind of fairly well-known around in the state.
By the way, what is the genres of music that you really enjoy? Is like, okay, this is inspiring. I know you have a few. Do you have a few also?
I like older country, folk. I like classic rock.
Chuck Berry?
I like Chuck Berry.
Yeah, me too. So, you guys do a Chuck Berry tune, right? Is that wrong?
Well, we
Am I
do.
wrong?
That's another project we have going on the side, Alan. We'll have to talk to you about maybe getting some of their music a little later at a later date. But yes,
I'd
we
be glad to
do.
bring you guys into a studio and do a real recording.
Wonderful. That would be
This
great.
is good, though.
That would be great.
Thank you, the Possum Meeting Place. Thanks.
Yes, it's a wonderful facility.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you about that. I was in your smaller house. When you build a house, you have to have another place to hang out, and that's where you hung out for 6 years, right? How many in the nine? 9 in the family? I have them right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
No, that's 8 in the family.
8 in the family. Okay. Sorry, Randy, and Mrs. Wiede. 8 in the family. So hanging out there while you guys were building that, and now it is kind of a place to go do some music. Is that where you guys rehearsed, or
Oh yes, we play a lot of music. Of course,
would you go out in the cold? Man, it was cold.
we play outside sometimes too, just wherever we happen to feel like playing.
See, I happened to do an interview not too long ago, and y'all mentioned that somebody's favorite day was like do some music, live, and then yours was take a drive. And I love your sisters reading the book of Ecclesiastes. That's something to do in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a long book. Does she know it by heart?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Well, I'm just checking. All right, so you shared a little bit of your backstory, or did you? Would you like to share a little bit more of your backstory? How you ended up with the first fiddle? That first moment, I have this song that I play once in a while. It's Mary Lou, and it's just about getting her first fiddle. Can you tell us your day?
Okay, well, I wanted to play the fiddle for a while, but I didn't have any money or way to get one. And we had a friend, his name was Virgil, and he was an older gentleman. And he heard I wanted to play fiddle. He said, well, I've got a second fiddle you can borrow. He played fiddle and guitar and mandolin. So he lent me a fiddle for a while. And but I was trying to find one. I kept going into the music store, and there's a couple I really liked, but they were like way out of my price range. So one day I came in, and Frank Ellis kind of looked at me, and he kind of smiled. He said, I think we've got one that you might be able to afford, and he had one at $200 on it, and I played it, and I said, yeah, I think I like that one fine, but I didn't have $200. And the guy that was selling it came in about that time, and Frank went and talked to him, and they came back inside, and he said, well, it's $85 now. So I walked out with my first fiddle, and that's the story.
That's great. So what was his name? Frank?
Frank Ellis
Frank Ellis.
owned the music store at that time.
Okay. And then he talked to the guy that bring it in on consignment, I take it, and they worked out a deal on the price,
Yeah.
without you knowing it, of course.
Well, I saw him go out and talk, but
Yeah.
they kind of helped
We
me
should,
out.
we should put it on layaway and he could pay 300, but it didn't happen that way, so, yeah. I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you're playing. How about bringing another song? Got one?
Okay.
Just, what is it?
This is Mississippi Sire.
Mississippi Sawyer? Did I say it wrong?
Mississippi Sire.
Mississippi Sawyer. Wow. So is that another Sam, or that's just one that you liked?
I'm sure he did it. It's a traditional tune. I think that one was maybe more influenced by Fate Morrison. It's
Very
kind of
cool.
influenced by his, but it's kind of my version.
Very good. Wanted to ask you a question, and I try to ask everyone this. How do you hope to impact the audience with the music that you play? And I know that it's impacted your life, but how would you hope when you're in your 90s, and how did you impact that audience? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I hope maybe it would bring people back in time, kind of to the stories and times that a lot of music was kind of born out of. I think that's what's interesting to me, but, you know, I just like its kind of homespun nature, too.
Yeah, as Randy put it, it's the music of the people. So
Yeah.
you want to give it back to the people, and that's what your generation's doing now. I think they did a very excellent job, Samuel, your friend, Frank, and different people that pass that down. They pass that that torch to y'all, and we're appreciating the fact that you're passing it even now to the next generation. Have you talked to some of the kids who are like, oh, did they look up and go, I want to play the fiddle? Have you run into one?
Well, yes, there have been several. Right now, I've got some kids I've been teaching some old fiddle tunes to, and they're enjoying it, so that's cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So they'll be the next generation. Have you done much recording? Are you going to plan on doing some recording? We just did a little recording, but I know you've done a little bit with me. The very first show, sitting on the couch, like with a mic hanging, just a can. And I have I have those songs, and I actually have some conversation that's archived that I never have pulled back because they have the same problem with echoing. But the stories that you told back then are a lot like the ones we talked about today. So I think we covered everything. Now, are you planning on doing some shows this spring?
Well, I don't really have any plans, but I'd be open to it. And we talked before about maybe seeing if we could do something at the folk festival in spring, so we might do that.
Well, we're hoping to put together a showcase, for anyone that's been on the show, and this is not coordinated yet, but that is something we would like to do, is coordinate with the folk festival or somewhere in the community here where we pop up on a stage and do a showcase. And sounds like you'd be willing to come and do one of those with
Would,
some of
that
the
sounds
other
fun.
artists like Chloe Murray and yourself and Brennan and the Wiede family. None of these people are roped in yet, but we're working on it. So, do you have any, Brennan, do you have any other stories from your childhood or just a yarn that you want to tell?
Well,
Something that will, like, I don't know, folk story.
an interesting, I guess, an interesting historical connection. The gentleman that Nathan bought his fiddle from was Missouri folk fiddler Bob Holt's guitar player for a long time. And a strange connection there goes back to when I was very small. Was my mom was also heavily influenced by the fiddling of Bob Holt. And as far back as I can remember, she has had cassette tapes. Everybody remember those? Weren't they wonderful?
Yeah, I have rooms
yes,
full of cassettes.
Yes. And she would play those when I was very small, and I listened to the Missouri, it would have been Missouri folk fiddling, but when I was probably 4 or 5 years old on up, and the distinctive sound and everything, that was all I was used to. I knew that. And then a little further along the way, she had archived recordings of the 1963 Folk Festival here in Mountain View. But some of my early connections, I guess you might say, that tied me in to traditional folk fiddling was some early cassettes of Bob Holt.
So was that more fiddle? Was that like more a little upbeat stuff, like fiddle dance?
Oh yes, Bob Holt was
Yeah,
known for
fiddle
playing
dance, right?
dances. Yes.
And are there fiddle tunes that are basically in a minor key? Is that kind of sad, depressing, and like, oh, thank you for playing that?
There are, but in the Ozarks, minors are not nearly as common in the music as they are in Appalachian music, although I wouldn't make rules about that.
Do you have another song that you want to do that's upbeat, not sad? Can you pick one?
Yeah.
All right, so this is Nathan Dodds and Brennan Wiede, and
We're going to do Snowbird in the Ash Bank.
all right, cool. So what was that called?
That's called Snowbird in the Ash Bank.
Snowbird. So you bring this book to me not too long ago. This is Fox Tales, and you've been helping kind of promote this. This is a storyteller here, and also worked with a lot of newspapers, and has great stories about Leslie and Lewis's standing out in the front, whittling, helping people with groceries. Have you read it?
I've read it. It's been a while. I need to review it again.
But this book you can pick up, I think, still.
You could probably still find a few copies down in Leslie on the, there's an old store on the square. I think it's where maybe Eric Yeager's storefront or something.
Mm-hmm.
You might still get a copy if you hurry.
Did you remember did any of those stories stand out in your head that you read?
Do I remember when any of
Like
these-
one of them that, like, oh, that's a great story. Or do you have any Benson Fox, who is the gentleman with the wood shop? He is now the mayor of Leslie.
Right,
Do you know his name?
Eric Yeager?
Eric Yeager heard me talking about this. Now I was calling him Benny Fox, because I just love that name. He says, out of respect, you need to call him Benson. And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir, is what I said. And but I love telling these stories, and people will say, that can't be from your experience, about a chicken. And anyways, I'm like, no, I was not alive during those days, but there's some great stories in here. Do you have any of those old folk stories like that?
Well,
Any of them will do you.
not offhand, but I remember, Nathan, you actually got the privilege of meeting Mr. Fox at one point in time,
Wow.
didn't you?
Well, my mom and dad got to go over to his place and talk to him. I never got to talk to him for that length of time, but I do remember when he was always sitting in front of Louis Grocery, and everybody come by and talk to him, and he'd whittle. He'd have a little piece of cedar. He'd whittle on, and he'd tell good stories.
Yeah, I heard that. Sorry, I don't want to get this in there. I heard that he was quite the hoot. I mean, every day, that would have brought people into Leslie, right? And in the beginning, there were like 5,000 people living there. And I don't know whether he was around during those days or not, but he tells stories like maybe he was when there was a little larger population in Leslie and there were things happening. He tells a story about the Barnum and Bailey Circus coming in, and they had poster guys that came in like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before, and they popped those posters up and through town, and everybody was anticipating that they were coming in, and when they came in, they do a parade. You've got giraffes and elephants and clowns, and everybody. He said, I believe there was more than 5,000 people lined up on that street in Leslie as they were coming through, and they actually set up their tents. You know where the railroad station is, across by the river along the tracks. Over there was a big field. There's still a big field there, but right along the tracks there, and it would pull people all over the place just to see the Barnum and Bailey Circus, the greatest show on earth. And it came to Leslie, Arkansas. So big things have happened in Leslie. And we hope some more big things happen in Leslie in the future. So Benson Fox, you should check that book out. Go into Leslie and see if you can find it. There should be one at the museum if the museum's open.
I don't know if the museum is open much now or not.
Okay. And so that's enough about Leslie. So I really want to thank Nathan Dodds and Brennan Wiede for coming out to do this show here in the meeting place in Mountain View. And, thank you for listening. This is KWMV 88.5 FM, folk music capital of the world. Thank you. That's a wrap. You want to